Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could teach the gullible to never be so comfortable with lies they eat like comfort food? To disregard the bogus claims and pseudoscientific claims. Can you imagine just how much indeed the world would change? No more political predators playing on the populace, but ilkas and plots to shift and kill metropolis. No more villains with the title in the Bible, holding phony temper Bibles like the stuff they teach is vital. Imagine it was normal to have to prove a claim you make, and folks really feel ashamed expressing content that was fake. It's not to say we never make mistakes, it's just to say we go out of our way to show the evidence it takes.
Remain skeptical while you travel the road, the reason stay strapped with logic and fast. That's what it is, yo. Keep reality intact to help the truth grow. Question every claim, especially the ones you believe in. Remain skeptical while you travel the road, the reason.
Hello, everyone.
Hi,
and welcome to Road to Reason.
I'm Tiffany.
I'm Stephanie.
And we got a pretty interesting show today. We're going to be talking later to Alex Jules. I'm super excited about that.
He's that activist guy.
Yes, he's that activist guy.
Very nice.
We have a picture of him. If let me pull that up. This is Alex when they put up a billboard for African Americans for Humanism. And there's a quote by Langston Hughes, and I think it was really important from where he's from, and we're going to talk to him, and I'm really excited about that.
So am I.
Yeah, we're going to do, we're going to be discussing like race issues, especially among secular communities. But first, we have some news to get to.
We do.
Oh my gosh.
First up is, I only thought of this because I thought it was funny, or found it because I thought it was hilarious.
It is hilarious.
There's this microscopic animal called a humped bladderwort. I'm sorry, that's the name. And it's a carnivorous plant, only a few millimeters big. It's very small. But they found out how it eats, and it's really, really interesting. So what it does is normally, right, sitting in the water, it's a tiny thing, so
right.
It's got a lot of water in it normally. What it does is it evacuates all the water out. So it creates a vacuum to suck its prey in.
Oh wow! Like those things they used to take yolks out of eggs. So it squeezes out, and then, but it's a little tiny thing, and it eats other animals. That's nuts.
Now, aside from the obvious, like it has trigger hairs and prey goes by and everything, the funniest thing about this is that the mechanism by which it came about, scientists think, is the reduction of genetic information, not more. So the mutation, it lost stuff. It was tidying up, as you could say.
Oh.
Yeah, it's cool. I think that's awesome. The amount,
interesting.
The breakthroughs we're able to make in genetics, to me, are really, really.
And
really
what's that name again?
It is a humped bladderwort. Don't forget that. That's the word of the day. Humped bladderwort.
Where do you find the little humped bladderworts?
In water, mostly.
Yeah.
I know.
Don't drink pond water, that's for sure.
Yeah, no.
It's disgusting.
I mean, it has flowers. It's a flowering plant. It just doesn't have any. It just doesn't have any roots.
Because it eats other things, and it's called a humped I can't get over that name. I can't get over
bladderwort, not a humpback bladderwort. Silly.
I can't get over that name. It's hilarious.
I think there might be some other news we might want to get to.
Though we do have some other news to get to. So recently, the county of Montgomery, Virginia, they had on their police cars, "Blessed art the peacemakers." And due to pressure from the Freedom from Religion Foundation, they were requested to remove them from the cop cars. So the captain of the force, his name is Brian White, says that it's a way to honor our brothers and sisters in law enforcement during a time when many seek to tear them down. And I don't know if you know or not, but "Blessed are the peacemakers" is a part of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5:9. And that is considered a conflagration of religion and public service. And that's not legal. So because Freedom from Religion Foundation bought this up, they took it down. And I do have to say that it says County Supervisor Chris Tuck, that's his name, he said that he appreciates the sentiment, but there is a separation of church and state, and putting Bible verses on cars violates the First Amendment. And
it's good to hear.
It is good to hear.
I think I understand that this similar thing happened in one or two other states.
Yes. So last year was in Texas. And I read the year before that, there was a jurisdiction in Georgia that had that same verse, "Blessed art the peacemakers." I mean, I get it, but it's an endorsement, I feel, of Christianity.
Oh, of course it is,
Yeah.
because it's from Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. It's not from
the
Allah's Sermon on the Mount. It's not from Muhammad's Sermon on the Mount.
And then you
It's
have
not from Moses'
people.
Sermon on the Mount.
Moses didn't have a Sermon on the Mount, did he? Did I miss it?
Almost none of the ones I mentioned did.
But he, the county supervisor said, of course, it would offend other members of other religions who live in the town or work on the force.
Of course.
So it makes perfect sense to just keep it neutral. We're not trying to take your religion away.
No, we're
wanna
just not. We're just trying to prevent you from having the government endorse it.
Yes, I'm just trying to keep things neutral. Separation.
There's a song. You gotta keep them separated. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there you go. Now everyone's gonna have that earworm.
We're
in
on the
their head.
same, yeah. You're gonna be stuck on your head all day. Let's do the next bit
So
of news.
speaking of religion,
Okay, which I love talking about.
have you heard of the Grand Canyon?
I have, once or twice.
You've heard of the Grand Canyon?
Yes.
All right, well, I have some news for you guys. A creationist is suing the Grand Canyon because, get this, they won't let him do research there. Now, the Grand Canyon restricts its research to about 80 research projects a year, so there's clearly a way that they have to...
Right, there's a protocol you have to follow.
Of course, yeah,
Right.
there's, a ladder they have to climb. And this guy doesn't want to do it. Creationists have this... this is a general strategy of theirs, is to boo-hoo about things because they don't want to follow the rules.
Right.
He wanted to collect something like, I think it was 50 or 60 rocks that are about the size of his fist to, try to prove his creationism. Now, this guy in particular does Bible tours of the Grand Canyon.
Oh, boy.
Like, takes people to show the creationist view of things despite the fact that they're very wrong.
Right. Well, they say that the Earth is 6,000 years old, and then the flood rushed through and carved out the Grand Canyon in like a night or something.
Yes.
Yeah, and so he's trying to prove that by taking. Okay.
Yeah, he actually says that the Grand Canyon comports quite closely with. That it doesn't. Now, the least surprising thing about all of this is that the Alliance Defending Freedom is who's representing the guy, which shouldn't surprise anybody if you know anything about them, because they're a Christian law firm, and they've been responsible for other things, other lawsuits as well.
So they're like the Christian version of the ACLU. They try to swoop
A little
in.
bit. Yeah, they've butt heads before because they're like, Christian oppression, and we're over here like, no, you're most of the country. No thanks.
So they say they can't take they want to take the rocks out. They're not like a university or a real research center. And
No.
so they say no, and so they're suing. You won't let us have rocks.
Yeah, and he worked for Answers in Genesis.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, Answers in Genesis, if you don't know, founded by Ken Ham. He built the Creation Museum and that giant
Ark.
The giant ark.
That is losing money, by the way, so
it's-
much so that the county is actually kind of regretting giving them the money, because the county was counting on that for revenue, which I think is
the county's almost
so
going
sad.
bankrupt.
Yeah.
Because of this art project. Taxpayers funded this religious theme park, literally what it is, Answers in Genesis. So it doesn't surprise me. They're very litigious, by the way.
Yeah.
They love to sue. They love to call religious persecution.
Yeah, his claim is that the government is discriminating against him because of his religious views.
Oh wow!
Now, if the guy's watching, I doubt he is, but if you're watching, or if you're a Christian, let me explain this to you very slowly. You are not being oppressed in this country for being Christian. The opposite's usually true. People who aren't Christian usually get discriminated against. Yeah. So just keep that in mind before you start crying foul with your cross around your neck.
Yeah, it is kind of unfortunate that so many people do think they're being oppressed, because it makes it easier to ignore people who actually are being oppressed.
That's true.
And especially if you are in a large, powerful evangelical community. You've got nothing to worry about. Just keep your toys to yourself. It's fine. You can have your religion. We're happy for you. Just you can't have it in government. That's what 2 out of the 3 stories we've talked about today.
Yeah, it's just religious people trying to get their way, and I don't know. The Grand Canyon is a target for creationists. It's always been a target for creationists.
See, that I did not know.
You didn't know that they've
No, I did not know that.
This is not the first time. Well, I can't say whether or not this is the first time they've sued the Grand Canyon, but I can guarantee this is not the first time that the Grand Canyon's come up as a staple argument of theirs. Because the river couldn't have carved this. God did it. And
Right.
But we know that the river did it. I'm sorry.
Right. You know, it's just interesting. And the more I learn about people who are doing things like suing the Grand Canyon or suing their towns to keep a religious message on the police cars, and I always think that you're lucky you can even bring a suit forward, because in other countries you couldn't even voice your opinion without getting your head chopped off. So we don't have a whole lot of time left before we go to break. So I would say that when we come back from break, we'll have Alex on. We'll ask him some questions. We're going to have a lot of fun, and I'm really, really looking forward to this.
Fantastic. We'll see you on the other side of the break, guys.
Because of my diabetes, I lost the sight in my left eye. Misconceptions continue to surround this monster public health issue. But the simple truth is, diabetes can often be prevented and complications avoided. You're not alone. Understand the realities of diabetes and know that you can manage it and lead a full, active life.
There's an alarming trend in the world today. Everywhere you go, people are saying that cinema is dead. But cinema is not dead. My name is Count Simon Gauntley, and on my television program, Count Gauntley's Horrors from the Public Domain, I make it my mission to resurrect forgotten film classics. I promise to dredge the sewers and ford the stagnant streams of film history to ensure that no film is truly lost to the ages. Count Gauntley and FPA, keeping cinema alive! Alive! Alive!
Well, even though Joseph's been gone 18 months, we've made the decision to keep all his things as they were when he was here last. I finally just packed his toothbrush away like 6 months ago. It had been sitting on the counter in the bathroom. And I was cleaning the bathroom one day and I just thought, okay, it's time to put the toothbrush in the medicine cabinet.
So, I just moved in with this family, and it's embarrassing. The little one, he likes to go outside and crawl around in the giant litter box. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, I was born and I knew how to use the litter box. Look at that. That's disgusting. Oh, poop already. You're making me nervous. Oh, okay, I can't look at this anymore. I really hope he grows out of this, for his sake.
This is Richard Dawkins. Doing commercials is unfamiliar territory for me, but I'm inviting you to watch Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century, on Fairfax Public Access every Sunday. Each week the hosts tackle wishful thinking, religion, pseudoscience, and the harm they cause, with a combination of facts, humor, and community involvement. They challenge believers to defend their faith and give you, the skeptic, a voice. With live call-ins for viewers and streaming on the World Wide Web, there's never a dull moment. Don't wait. Look at them now on Facebook and YouTube. And remember to watch Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century, or there'll be hell to pay.
Sorry, I love that commercial with Richard Dawkins.
Yeah, he's going to be here on the 24th at
give us a quick rundown of what he's going to be doing.
Oh, there?
Yeah.
He's going to be with Jerry Coyne. They're going to be talking about all sorts of fun stuff. You guys should go.
Yeah, I think I will. I think I'll check that out. Thank you.
So next we have an activist and someone that I really like. He's been a friend of mine for a while. He was on Dogma Debate. He's an author. Mm-hmm. He's on a tour right now.
Yes.
So I think it's time to welcome Alex Jules.
Welcome, Alex. Hi. Can you hear us?
Hi, I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
certainly
can hear you fine.
Wonderful.
Thank you. So we put Alex Jules, writer, activist, yada 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 yada. What do you do in your What do you do in your day job?
I sleep. No. My day job, I'm in IT, actually cognitive computing. So I do a lot of math stuff and crunching a lot of numbers and designing computing.
And you have your own blog. It's called The Graffiti Wall. On Patheos?
Yes, on Patheos, yes.
Is it Patheos or Patheos? I think I've been saying it wrong for years.
I always say Patheos.
Patheos.
No one agrees. No one agrees.
Oh, okay.
So,
I guess it really doesn't matter. So I wanted to talk to you, I guess we wanted to talk to you about, because you're going to be talking about your program that you're on tour now, speaking, it's called the Program on Race and Racism in America. And one thing I really wanted to talk about was this notion of scientific racism that a lot of the atheist community, like on YouTube, some of them kind of subscribe to, especially particularly Sam Harris, who got into it a couple weeks ago with Charles Murray when they were talking about the bell curve. I wanted to know your opinion.
That was actually a really fun thing for me to listen to. It took me about 3 tries. It took me about 3 tries to get through it because I threw my phone like the first 3 times and had to locate it, and it took me like 2 hours. But I think Sam Harris is very much like the Jim Comey of the scientific community. He doesn't tend to look at the overall context of things, and he has his wonderful motivations, and they're all good, positive, altruistic, and often objective motives to actually explore things, and doesn't spend a whole lot of time asking the reason why or the realities of having these conversations in the actual context that we exist in. Quite often, he looks at it and says, hey, we should be able to have this dialogue, just like Murray was talking about removing affirmative action. Do you really still need it, et cetera? And what about the math? Does it actually lend itself to the idea that there are inherent differences in intelligence when it comes to the races? Well, that's almost a secondary question when you start looking at what happens with those results after the fact. Because we know that we live in a society that will look at those numbers regardless on how they came to be and just immediately say, okay, well, the majority of the population is going to look at the minority population, of course, the majority population being 70% versus 13%, and find ways of oppressing or further marginalizing that minority number. It's just a byproduct.
Right. And so do you, for anyone who doesn't know, the bell curve had some very interesting takes on race and intelligence. Alex, do you want to summarize that really quickly for us?
Yeah, it basically shows that there are just differences in the races when you actually test for them. Now, it doesn't actually talk about the integrity of those tests or the motivations of how some of those tests were created. It just says when you test these particular races, this is what you tend to see, and white people tend to test a little bit better sometimes significantly better in the SAT and other standardized testing versus African Americans in the Black community. And there are some that would say that nurture is more important than nature. However, they're very difficult to extricate from each other. So you wind up having the conversation of, well, are Black people just less capable of being as intelligent as their counterparts? It's really difficult.
My thing with the bell curve is always struck me as funny that they use IQ, right? They use IQ for that test, and the problem isn't IQ bunk? Like, isn't IQ, hasn't that been rejected as a way of measuring intelligence, or has it seen a resurgence, and that's why this is relevant now?
Well, the whole reason that Harris decided that he was going to have this conversation is because there is still this conversation in psychometrics and even psychology is how do you define what intelligence is and how do you test for it? And it still comes back to, well, you've got to still be able to objectively apply some measure of testing, some rigor of testing to say, hey, this is how people, how you let people into, Ivy Leagues, et cetera, which is one of the reasons he developed the bell curve, right? It's like to justify the the SAT as a whole. It's like, how can Harvard or Yale, et cetera, let people in? Well, you've got to flatten the playing field, but it actually introduces additional hurdles for people who aren't exposed. So there are things like cultural bias in some of those questions. And he actually says, if you look at the numbers, and they're contestable, if you look at the numbers, there is or isn't cultural bias. And if you remove the cultural loading in some of these questions, then maybe perhaps you still find one inescapable truth, which is African Americans still score lower. Again, this goes back to, is the test itself truly credible?
Right. That's what I was going to ask. Right before we came on, the point was brought up. I think it might have been producer. I can't remember who.
Someone said it. We're not sure.
But it sounds. I know it was the director. We were talking about this very thing, and he kind of quipped something like, white people are doing well at the test that they wrote.
Yeah.
That's
You're
incredible.
not doing well in the test we wrote for you to take.
Yeah. Is there? I mean, we joked about it. Obviously, we think it's funny, but is there any merit to that idea as like an actual reason?
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the one example, and it's almost a mythic example, is the question of the regatta. How many black people, that almost doesn't matter what your class is, how many black people know what regatta is. And so when you start looking at that part of the reading and comprehension part of the SAT, you wind up looking at this cultural load. Now, unfortunately, the jury's still out on this one, because we've been playing and tweaking these tests to try and remove a lot of the cultural load and the barriers for them. I mean, that's why I think we started talking about this back in the late 80s, early 90s, and this is the third or fourth iteration of the SAT. I mean, I couldn't walk into the SAT right now and say, hey, it looks like what it looked when I took it. Right. I don't know what I'd score on the SAT today, right. But there is a resurgence because there is a level of validity in measuring what's going on in certain populations. How are they doing based on several of the contributing factors to where they are today? Right. You have to, but you have to remember that context, and that's what people like Sam and Charles Murray tend to forget. There's all of this context that goes with it that is completely being ignored.
So here's my big question. What's a regatta? Do you know what a regatta is? What's Alex?
It's a big boat. It's a boat.
Oh.
It's a boat.
It's a boat.
It's a boat, right.
The stroke, that thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's usually in racing. It's actually in stroke. It's actually in racing that you'll see a regatta usually used. So it does have a sail, and yes, most black people will not know what the idea is.
I didn't know what that was.
Exactly.
I just proved the point. No, I didn't prove a point. But I literally had no idea what that was, and I thought I was pretty educated on really obscure things, but I had no idea what a regatta was. It sounds delightful. Sounds like a party to me. Well, it does. Regatta, regalia.
It sounds to me it's something condiment.
Yeah.
Would you like some regatta on your food?
Just grind it. Say when. Sorry.
Regatta cheese.
It's a good pizza topping.
Yes.
It's a good pizza topping.
Regatta cheese.
So as far as like the causes go, the claims of the bell curve and some other scientific racism claims I've heard tend to focus on things that are quantitative, and they never take into account the quantitative factor of quality of education that they're availed. Oftentimes, African American students are in schools that are themselves underfunded, like extremely underfunded.
Right.
And I don't think they see it as the cause. They see it as a biological cause. Where I don't think there's much biology. As far as biology goes, everyone fits into a bell curve, like everyone of every race. So as far as that goes, I don't really pay much attention to the bell curve.
Yeah, there's like high and low ends in every race. There's really super smart, and then there's really...
Yeah, but that's every population. So I guess
every population.
It seems to cut against scientific racism. First that fact, and then second fact that is...
I mean, because Stephen Hawking and Kid Rock are both white men, but they're very different.
Yeah, exactly.
They're very different.
Exactly.
On the curve.
But do the is it the environmental factors that you think are that aren't being addressed that are actually the real causes, that if we address those?
Yeah, okay. Now there's an entire field that is still arguing that, what version of nature versus nurture. When we take a look at things such as nutrition, and we know that nutrition can often affect education, and even when you try and normalize for that, that's really, really hard. Now we know that nutrition over the years has gotten better in African American and Black communities, but let's blow this out even further. Black communities are really complex because you don't just have African Americans. No. Now you have the entrance of Nigerians and West Indians, and do they fit the same bell curve as well? And the answer is no, not really, yes, sometimes, and it just complicates everything. So when you say that you're going to label or stereotype, and this is what winds up happening, even though it's not the intention, that Blacks, racial differences, this is a Black thing. Right. It becomes this massive umbrella, which also applies to all of the immigrants that are coming in, unless you further create a new strata for just the Black immigrants, and then you have a completely different thing going on, altogether. And so you have multiple phenomena that are contributing to people's psychology and their creativity, and eventually into their intelligence. So
I have another question. I mean, I have read Sam Harris's books. I've always thought he was a very astute, very, he's eloquent. But why would someone like him cling to this bunk science? You said it's pretty much unprovable. Why would he cling to something like this?
Well, in the discussion, he really addresses the idea that this is still worth talking about, and that's why I call him the Comey of the community. He does it without necessarily looking at what the ripple effects are going to be, and to a certain extent, I do applaud him taking on some very controversial topics and trying to apply skepticism and science to that. Right. But he's only using one or two lenses when many of these issues are extraordinarily multifaceted. When he had the conversation with Thomas Sewell, for instance, when he was talking about racism is more of a class issue, et cetera, it's like, wait a minute, there's so much else that you should be talking about. There's sociology, there's evolutionary sciences that contribute to why people have biases, et cetera. You can't just say that it is strictly, economic disadvantage or privilege that creates these kinds of class warfare. No, especially when you talk about America and its very racist background. So, I think he may have wonderful motivations, and I don't take that away. It's just, trying to dig deeper sometimes is really hard and complicated, especially for someone like Sam, who does come from a somewhat privileged academic bubble.
Yeah, he's a smarty pants is what he's saying.
Okay, I guess, because as far as other civil rights movements have gone, they've been pretty slow or not, maybe not slow is the right word, but, trying to get people to catch on took a while. Right. In the age of the internet now, we have a lot more people. It just seems like, to me, social issues are being addressed more quickly, but we're not getting any, we're doing it faster, we're addressing them faster, people are being more conscious of it more often, right. But we still have the same amount of hate, and we still have all these problems. But I guess my question about all this to lead up to all that is, do you think that the ubiquity of the internet is an incubator for old bad ideas because they can just sit in places online?
No one's going to tell you how dumb your question is. You know
in
what I
some
mean?
corners,
if you can just shout it.
Like 4chan. I don't know. To me, it just seems like social media is a double-edged sword. Yeah. On the one hand, it brings all the people together, Alex, myself, and everyone, where we're not, in the same state, and we have very similar goals. Right. Stuff can happen faster, but you also see hate happening faster and more often and more organized than it's ever been before.
So what do you think?
Yeah, not only that, unfortunately, we tend to be able, I'm not saying that America is more racist than anywhere else, but our specific kind of breeding hate and stereotypes is easily exportable now through the internet.
Yeah.
So when I travel Europe, I'm dealing with the same types of issues that have been modified, but feel very, very similar. So it's not the same thing that someone in the UK would typically deal with, or although now more so than ever, the Black experience is almost universal. There's this idea of anti-Black hate that has kind of gripped many areas. But when I go out into Eastern Europe, for instance, and they may not have ever dealt with a Black person, so you'd say, hey, you're not racist. You can't be racist because you have never met a Black person.
Race,
right? But they immediately come on to me, and the first thing, of course, is gotta touch your hair, and they want to talk to me about rap music and all these other things. It's like, okay, well, what is your idea of what a Black person is? It's like, it's what I see on TV, or it's what I read on the internet. So it's never built on, and Sam talks about this, and so does Murray, but they kind of gloss over it, is can we get back to treating people as individuals? Yeah. That'd be great if we ever treated people like individuals, but human beings tend to create these heuristics, these ideas of friend or foe. And so, I've got this idea of who you might be, and it's incredibly difficult to overcome that because they do entrench themselves in the lower psyche, and it's incredibly difficult to say, hey, my amygdala is not going to be triggered right now. I'm going to try and access other pieces of my brain immediately right then and there. No, it's the same thing that police officers default to when they say, I was fearing for my life. Well, you didn't look at this person as an individual. No. You saw a Black person and you said, okay, I know Black people are violent or scary, and now you introduce the idea of less intelligent, then yeah, it goes back to the idea of being subhuman. Scientific racism that has existed for hundreds of years. We have thicker skulls. All of that is there.
Have you ever heard that like we're less susceptible to pain or something?
Yeah. Oh yeah, there was a wonderful study. I think it was back in 2015 or 16 that went out and talked to doctors and explored how they were treating Black patients, and they didn't medicate us the same way because they just thought that we felt pain differently.
Isn't it great being Black, Alex?
I know what you mean.
It's like I've heard that our children look older than white children.
Yes.
And they get suspended. Yeah, people will see. Remember when little Tamar Rice was killed by the guy thought he was like in his 20s and he was 12, and so they did a test where they showed a bunch of like Black children and were like, now guess how old these kids are, and people got the ages wrong by up to 10 years sometimes, like 7, oh he's 17, things like that. And so that's what makes cops run up to kids and go, hey, we're little children, we don't know what you're talking about. They say some people see us as older than what we are. Not me though, I'm still 28. I'm gonna hide now.
I'm 25G. I just start using just recurring versions of 25, so I'm 25G.
All right, I have what's probably might end up being a thorny question. So Sam gets put into that group of people that is always accused of being the Free Speech Brigade. And without making this about fruit, do you think that having hate speech laws
sounded out
are helpful, or do they make racial tensions worse? I don't know. I certainly think that there's speech that can be considered like fighting words, like those kind of things. I'd almost classify hate speech as fighting words, but I guess want to get your opinion.
Does it hinder the conversation on race?
Because
I'm afraid to say anything.
Yeah, I often hear stupid white people say stuff like, well, say exactly like that. They're like, well, no, it's racist because you can't have a hate crime against a white person. Like, dude, we're everybody. We're most of the people.
Yeah.
That means that we don't need the protection because we have all the voting power. Like, it's a power issue.
Yeah.
That
So-
not, right?
I think I don't believe that you could actually enforce hate speech laws in the United States because of the power principle. The justice system does set itself up to lend particular privileges to whites over blacks, and we see that statistically, even when we try and isolate some of the other variables. It just is. So I don't, I would be very hesitant to introduce a hate crime laws because I don't think that they would necessarily matter. People are always going to want to say what they say. I mean, you have people right now who have said they don't like engaging with black people because of a fear of being called a racist, and they immediately recoil on that. And it's like, well, being called a racist hasn't stopped people from being racist.
Right.
So you're just gonna do it. So introducing that additional barrier is just that. You introduce a barrier. Now, should there be some type of bigger backlash for doing that? I think it'd be nice if we could. I think that we're seeing society say that there needs to be some type of backlash, whether and I think you're seeing it on the campuses when you have the kids that are saying, hey, I don't want you here. That's valid. That's valid. Now,
what do you mean, want you here? Are you talking about black people or like in culture?
I'm talking about black people. Black people saying, hey, I don't want you here. I do not want you on my campus, right? Is somewhat society saying, this is the backlash for the message that you're bringing. It should be valid. Protesting should be valid. But that often will bring the next question is like, okay, so now you're just creating bubbles. Well, there's no good answer to that.
Right.
I mean, the thing about, I've seen stuff on college campuses, or there's these really nice stories. Well, some like a Muslim or person of color might get harassed, and then a whole bunch of students run up on the person the harasser and messed him up, or otherwise rectify the situation.
But now they're saying that you're violating his free speech to say that. Give me a break.
No.
That's I agree. I'm with you.
Free. All your rights end the second they start infringing on the rights of others.
Yeah.
That's all of your rights. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
Your religion can't. It can tell you to kill people on Sundays. The Bible does.
Yeah. But
you'd be hard pressed to find someone to do it.
Yeah, and no lawyer is ever going to defend you, and it's just not going to happen. But so I have. You want to ask your question? Oh, okay. So I was going to ask, why do you think that so many young white skeptics might fall into this idea of scientific racism? Oh, the black people are different because adrenaline is linked with melanin. See, it's been proven. Or they have evolved differently because we came to Europe, and you guys see, because black people are lactose intolerant, but white people aren't. See, we're different. We're not really the same. Why are people doing this? You're supposed to be skeptics. You're supposed to be the rational ones. Why are we seeing so many falling into this?
Because ideology or self-serving ideology in any community tends to win. It's very difficult to see someone else outside of yourself. I mean, we start talking about the degrees of separation. I mean, it's very human to say, hey, I'm going to put me and my family first. And if you buy the idea that race is just an extension of a much bigger inbred family, then you're going to associate with them really quickly versus, people that are from another tribe.
Right.
Again, this tends to lend itself very easily to the religious dogmatic discussion of differences. So we tend, but it's still very human, and we're going to do a lot of that.
Oh, God.
And I don't know if there's an easy way to escape that, given some of that is also biological.
Ooh, it's interesting.
I
saw what you wrote down.
Speaking of biology, my question Don't take this the wrong way.
No, take it the wrong way. It's going to be great. I'm just kidding.
I want to know from an objective sense. I understand that cultures are a thing because you can point to traditions and things, etc. I often see race defined by skin color. The problem is there's shades of skin colors going all the way up to the darkest of dark to albino, right?
Right.
There's a great video on YouTube that said, the 5 most unique skin colors. To me, I don't, skin color isn't that important to me. That being said, it's clearly a way that we, as a society, have decided
what race is?
Yeah.
Ask your question, Stephanie.
But is race an actual thing in and of itself, or is it simply something that was invented in order for us to make sense of the world and, in the end, used to oppress people?
Am I following? I know, right?
I'm saying I rather see it as a tool of bigots than anything else, as far as it's concerned. I just think it's a bad thing.
I do agree that race in itself is a bad thing if we separated each other from just that, except that to a certain extent, when we start talking about phenotype and the differences between cultures, etc., then we would just be talking about culture.
Right.
And that would be great, except that we know that it would still wind up being that level of discussion. And we use culture as a barrier as well. So, a lot of people like to say, oh, well, the Irish were enslaved. Well, the Irish dealt with some level of oppression. Africans were specifically sought out for enslavement because they were Africans, not just Black, but because they were Africans. It didn't just happen other places. But it has evolved into a way of oppress, not identification. I think that's the big difference.
Yeah,
it's not identification versus,
that's what I was trying to get at. It being an objective reality, such I could point and say, it's like we can all agree that the apple's on the table, for instance, or we can go, race isn't real, but it's real for the people that have to experience oppression.
We still have to experience it, so you can't ignore it.
I'm not saying to ignore it.
Oh, no.
I wish, my goal, my wish, if you gave me a genie lamp and we could be seriously, actually, literally postmodern, the only way we would be able to do that is to scrub the idea of race from the collective history of humanity, which is not going to happen. It's very utopia.
And I mean, a lot of unique parts of culture come from, But that leads me to this question about colorblindness. And no, physically, of course, we know race isn't real, but we can't ignore it. Okay, so this idea of some people being colorblind, they don't see race, I myself feel it's more harmful. It does more harm than good. What are your opinions on it?
Outside of just calling it ridiculously naive, I just have to call it ridiculously naive. We don't live in, I would love to move, and I've heard a lot of friends say, I'm colorblind. It's like, okay, great, I'm moving in with you, and I'm never, ever leaving your home. And that's the only way that you can protect me from everyone else who isn't colorblind.
Right.
You have now become another minority in the United States. And we minorities may be able to hang together. I'll be Black and you can be colorblind, that's great. But the majority of society, majority of America is not colorblind. So until you make that big, massive cultural shift, being colorblind does more harm than good. It's like saying that classes themselves don't exist. I'm just gonna say, since I'm happy and I can afford to pay my rent and I can afford to eat and do what I need to do, poverty just doesn't exist. That's just not true. That's just not true.
Yeah, when I hear people go, well, I'm colorblind, to me it goes, I see you're having problems, but I don't recognize that those problems are happening to you because you're Black. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It sort of takes away my identity from what I've, because being Black in America has shaped who I am.
How could it not?
Yeah, exactly.
Especially because it's not like you grow. I think the kids growing up now are going to have an easier time not being racist overall for the most part.
I hope so.
And that wasn't the case when either one of us were growing up. I grew up and it was like we were born in '86.
Right.
So and growing up it was
so young.
the '90s. The '90s, I think, were a really weird time because I remember things being really sensitive and not being able. And it's not the I'm white, we can't talk about race. I'm not talking about that.
I would rather have people do that though.
It was more like I don't know I don't know what's going on. It seemed very nebulous.
Right.
Because I mean the 60s it happened. I didn't see video of black people being hosed down or have dogs sicked on. I didn't see that.
Right.
And I think people go, there's no racism because they never saw that. It's the same thing with vaccines. Well, my kids didn't get polio. So
and that's still the case today. I think when you have young whites that live in suburbia, that the only real time that they see black people is living vicariously through rap music, or lying about the amount of black friends that they have, because we know that exists as well. Mathematically, it just doesn't work. You have 70% of the population that identifies as white, and then 13%. There's no way that all of you know all of us. It's just not possible.
Right.
And you're not going to see a lot of the experiences that we deal with. How many white people know that legal segregation, school segregation, actually just ended in 2016 in Mississippi, right? But that's true in Columbus, Mississippi. They were legally segregated up until 2016, and they decided that they were going to argue against the desegregation until 2017. Back in January, they said, okay, we give up and we shall. These kinds of, yes, it's a one-off, but we have to talk about where we really are in the terms of advancement. And you have a lot of kids that are younger, than millennials and younger, who are very disconnected from why the institutions developed the way that they did. And when we talk about institutionalized and systematic racism, how they evolved the way that they did, and the police and how they evolved from slave patrols, and why in certain municipalities they act a certain way. Even when there's massive police turnover, the cultures are totally ingrained, and that's how things are perpetuated.
I have not a racy question. I mean, we have to keep it clean.
I can see it.
We'll keep it clean.
Oh, I'm blushing.
This has been kind of a thorny issue on my Facebook, I know for sure. Do you think that there is racism in being attracted to certain races of people? I guess for a much less. Not fetishizing, not like...
It can be.
It can be. No, I'm stepping outside of fetishizing because I don't want that's obviously wrong. Like, I don't think we have a discussion about stuff that's obviously wrong. Right. Because, I deal with it too. Is being attracted to, say, a certain race, or saying, like, I'm more attracted to, say, black people or white people, or is that racist? Or is that just...
weird
how you are, like how you're just attracted to people?
I don't think it's biological. I don't think that is necessarily biological. I think that to say that we aren't influenced culturally to who we're attracted to, that's just not accurate. If you go, I could be the same person, same DNA, and you put me in Africa, and I may never find a white person attractive because I'm never exposed to them, etc. You stick me in the U.S. and hey, my wife happens to be white. You have these, so we know that these influences exist there, and a lot of our attitudes we inherit culturally as well, including the attitudes on what is beautiful, what is attractive, what is, and some of that may be racially motivated. Right. So is it consciously racist? Probably not in most cases, or in a lot of cases. But if you dig into the reasons why you may find certain people, or why your preferences evolved the way that they did, they may have a very, very racist origins.
Now the opposite is definitely racist. Oh, I won't sleep with that person because they're X. Now that's definitely racist.
Yeah, and they'll usually say because they are.
Because they are.
And then name race.
Yeah.
It's just so weird. I've always just been more. I don't know what it is. Alex is probably right. There's probably some bias that I can't access that leads me to have that preference, but I do. White people actually come second.
Ooh, girl.
Or not at all.
I'm like the UN. I don't care as long as you're nice and happy and smart. You know what I mean? But let's put it this way. I have one more question about preference. Now, what do you think about some people? Do you agree that some people sort of just gravitate together? You know what I mean? And some people I've heard say, well, segregation is just kind of naturally how we do things. You know, do you see any truth to that? Because I think it might be a little, wishy-washy to say you can't integrate because people will naturally separate and go to more people that look like them.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's entirely true. I mean, in the context of the United States, it's very difficult to buy that, given that we haven't had a lot of experience integrating, right? I mean, that's the reality. I mean, back in the 80s and 90s, we were arguing about being able to integrate just legally in the schools, and of course, as I just mentioned, you had people fighting in 2016, and then when you take a look at the actual schools today, and they're not really any more integrated than they were back in the 60s. And we're talking about places like New York City and Philadelphia, et cetera, where you're seeing numbers of 95, 96% homogeneity in many of these schools by one race. 95% of a school is one race. And so, but then you have to ask yourself why that is. And is it because people don't want to, or is it because they couldn't have? And so you can't ignore the idea of the racial restrictions. But then again, you go out into places like in Europe, in Eastern Europe, et cetera, where you still see the same thing with the Gypsies and the Remains and et cetera. They are being carved out and saying, you have to stay away.
Oh, wow.
Right.
I did not know they still did that.
Oh, yeah, still a problem, still a massive problem.
I'm depressed.
Yeah.
Don't be.
I'm sorry.
To follow up on her question, because she gave me this idea, can we overcome what is generally referred to as our innate tribalism?
Yeah.
The tendency to stick together with people that, quote, look like you, unquote, and et cetera. I mean, it's obviously family, but, something you said too, that, people tend to want to group together a certain way. But do you think we can overcome that? Just from a social point of view, we can? Okay.
Oh, absolutely. But it requires something that most people are afraid to do, and it tends to be like many other phobias, right? And it's you have to deal with it through exposure, and it has to be constant exposure, and it has to be repetitive, and it has to be uncomfortable until it becomes less uncomfortable, and then it becomes normal, and that's that's when it becomes less of an issue. But the question of what's the white person's motivation to do that with a black person, again, there's no power struggle, there's no ladder that they're trying to climb that's going to push them forward. So a lot of times they won't necessarily do it. Like I said, most white people lie about the number of black friends that they have.
Steph says one.
What?
I lie. I undershoot because I know Alex hates me.
No.
We've established that he doesn't. I'm just giving a hard time.
Now look, we got 5 minutes left. Excuse me, we have 5 minutes left, and so we wanted to sort of wind down with you, that we can talk about your tour and the things you're doing. So I guess one more quick question. What advice would you give for someone who doesn't really know a whole lot about race and different cultures and wants to, but they're afraid because they don't want to sound like a racist? Really quick.
Well, one, don't be afraid. Two, do not put everything on, do not put the onus of teaching you how to not be racist on your only black friend, because that can do a lot of harm. But don't be afraid to have a conversation. A lot of these spaces aren't necessarily safe, and we do invite people in there to have conversations, because at the end, we're kind of all in this together.
Oh, well, thank you.
We're all Stardust.
We're all Stardust, and we're all in this together. We're all going to die.
Nothing happens on purpose. Nobody exists.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's the Rick and Morty thing. So Alex, you're doing a tour. Where are you starting, and what's the gist?
Yeah, it's going to be on race and defending race in the face of reason. We're going to be talking about color blindness and how to overcome some of that, a lot of what we talked about. And I'm actually starting this part of the tour is May 25th to the 28th, and I am going to be in Wilmington, North Carolina, Thursday the 25th, and 7 p.m. at the Dream Garage, and then Myrtle Beach on the 26th. And then on the 28th, I'll be in Richmond, Virginia. So that's the first leg of the tour.
I'll be driving down to see that one. I'm coming.
You're gonna
down.
come see me? Awesome.
Yeah, that's only about 2 hours away from DC, and so people can get to you. Twitter, come on, give us your Twitter.
Yep. Twitter is Alex331. On Facebook, it's Alex.Jules, and it's Alex with an I, A-L-I. It's all about me, X.Jules. You can follow me there, and you can also follow me that's it. That's it. Yeah, you can also follow me on the graffiti wall.
Right.
I'm always going to forget the graffiti wall.
I was going to say,
Yep.
We have the link down
the
there.
bottom of your screen.
So
the lower third is what they call it.
and it'll be hopefully will be in the description box below when this is on the YouTube, so you can check that out in the box below.
So I just wanted to say, I mean, if you have any last words, we've got 2 minutes left. Have you? I love how he's giving us a silent treatment now.
Like,
Thank you for stopping talking. Yeah.
Well, she tells me I hate her, and
Yeah, I know. You know what? I'm going to say, you guys leave your drama over there because I need to be positive, and it's over here.
Okay. Is there more to the tour? Like, are you touring more after that?
Yeah, we're scheduling up California, and that'll be released later. But let's see, where else?
I can say hi to Ish.
Yeah, I'm going to
when
be
you go to California, you get to see David Smalley.
Yeah.
You're going to hang out with David?
So I'm going to be in St. Louis, July 28th to the 30th at the Gateway to Reason, and then again at Pennsylvania State Atheist and Humanist Conference in October 13th.
Wait, you're going to be at Gateway to Reason too?
I will be at the Gateway to Reason,
yes. I'm going to be giving my last talk there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
All right,
awesome.
Or at least the last talk on that particular topic. Right. Yeah.
Oh, and listen to Alex on Angry Blank Rant, because we had a great show that last time we were on together. It was hilarious. But yeah, other than that, all I can say is thank you so much for coming to talk to us. You know, I really admire you. I admire the work you've done, and you've done it for a long time. And I'm looking forward to going to this Universalist Unitarian Church next week to see you speak. Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right.
It's a pleasure.
Alex, it was always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to have you, but I miss you on Dogman Debate. I do. I miss you.
Well, thank you. I miss you too.
Right.
Well, we're going to have to let you go because we're running out of time here in the studio. But Alex Jules is with us. Isn't he awesome? Yep. You guys should go check out his stuff, check out his tour.
I'm Tiffany.
I'm Stephanie.
And we'll see you next time. Road to Reason.
The Skeptic's Guide to the 21st Century.